Hello, 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 and welcome to the Brighter Podcast. My name is BatSheva.
Hello, everyone. My name is Chelsea.
And my life is a lot brighter thanks to Chelsea.
And my life is extremely brighter thanks to BatSheva.
We welcome you as we share stories, tools, techniques, all kinds of wonderful things that work for us, that light us up and make our lives brighter in the hopes that they also will make your lives much brighter and will help you as you dive deeper into knowing yourself better and into loving yourself more and more every day. But before we get started on today's amazing episode, the topic of which is aging. What does that mean to you? Which is like a really wonderful and ever culturally important topic. First, we will arrive in the space, as we like to say. So go ahead and allow your body to settle. Maybe draw your consciousness into your heart space. Close your eyes if you're in a place where you can do that. Take a nice, soothing breath in through the nose. When you let it out through the mouth, just imagine anything that's ready to go, let it go. Breathing in again through the nose, calming, quieting energy. Breathing out through the mouth, anything that's ready to go, let it go. Final deep breath in through the nose, calm, loving energy. Breathe it all out. Anything ready to go, let it go. Hello. So we are so excited to welcome you to today's episode. In fact, without even meaning to, Chelsea and I had a conversation that was kind of the perfect segue into this episode right before we turned on the cameras, right? What was it?
Oh my gosh, yes, talking about aging and what it looks like aging as a parent, like what your behaviors and the techniques that you use parenting or the preferences that you have parenting, and then kind of me looking at it from being the oldest child and maybe how I was parented compared to like how my younger sisters were parented. Because although we have the same parents, we lived in the same household, the same house, our upbringing was definitely different. I mean, there were definitely other factors in it, but I think a big part of it just has to do that everyone is always aging. Like if you are alive, you are aging. You are never going to be younger than what you are right this second. And we're ever evolving.
It was something I really appreciated. Mindy Pels, the woman who we mentioned, I think in our 7th episode when we talk about the fasting that we did, I really appreciated that in the podcast we listened to that she was being interviewed by Know Thyself, Andre, king of podcasts. Do you remember she said she didn't believe in anti-aging? And I was like, go you, because it is a fucking reality, just what you said. We all age. Like you said, we all age. There is no stopping it in this physical world. And yet we do live in a culture with pervasive messaging that this is bad, that this is not desirable, and that the older one gets once one is an adult, one has to slow it down or stop it or reverse it. And of course, so many industries only put emphasis on youth, whether it's appearances or just the actual age itself. So here we are in this environment, living in it.
Yeah, I found it really interesting because last week and the week before, it's something I've definitely noticed in myself is that I can feel really triggered whenever people call themselves old in a derogatory manner. And I shared this with BatSheva and was like, it's just really upsetting. And I'm trying to find out like why that is for me. Like, what is it that bothers me about it? And I kind of, like after digging a little bit, I kind of started thinking about my nursing career and seeing people at their worst for some people, in the ICU, and they're fighting for their life or they're coming to the end of their life. And then hearing other people say that they're old. And it's like, they're not saying they're old because they're old. They're like 50 and they're like, oh, I'm old. And it's not even like that they're saying it like in a light way or just like, oh, I'm getting older, anything like that. And that looking at it as a negative. And I just shared with her that, I think there's so much to be learned from our elders, the people that are passing down like ancient wisdom or, wisdom from your family, your ancestors, like all of these different things. I mean, if someone has lived longer, chances are, unless they've been hiding under a rock or in some cave, they've had some life experiences. And although you can't pertain or even necessarily learn from their mistakes, you can gain knowledge from it. And you can gain like, oh, I remember just like kind of what we're doing here, like the sharing of experience. And whenever you find yourself maybe in a situation, you can remember those conversations that you had, or even relate your ancestry. And maybe if you believe in past lives or, things being passed down through your genetics from your elders, from your ancestors, that you can find some correlation and maybe even like some aha, like, oh, that may be why I feel this way. Or for instance, a girl I went to yoga teacher training with, she had done some past life regression with Dolores Cannon, QHHT. And she had discovered she loves children now in this lifetime, but she doesn't have the desire to have children. And she discovered, like through this QHHT that she was doing, that in past lives, she had been a slave twice and had to give herself an abortion. And so she's like, it makes so much more sense to me now of why I wouldn't be drawn to having children in this lifetime. And so I don't know. And it all depends on your preferences and your perspectives and your beliefs. But I think that aging really allows us the opportunity to kind of see from different perspectives and put ourselves in different timelines and imagine what it might be like.
Well, that is incredible. And I want to offer to anyone listening who doesn't really have much experience thinking about or learning about past lives and reincarnation, I really want to share the title of the book, Many Lives, Many Masters, with you by Brian Weiss, and just encourage you to go read that book and get back to us. Because without the context of past lives, it's not impossible at all to still grow and understand ourselves in this lifetime. But I will say for those of us who have that context, it does help put things into massive perspective. And it also really takes us off the hook. Like Chelsea said, this isn't the only lifetime. There's one after the other that we're going through trying to learn these lessons. And similarly, astrology is something, not everyone gets on board with. But my experience with it was completely revolutionary to learn about my own astrology because, for example, me having a Capricorn moon and my particular chart shows that, and I just had a reading and he emphasized this again, but I'd heard it before, my personal trajectory in this lifetime is like, he called it like a Benjamin Button, if you know that movie, where I started out like an old man, or in my case, like an old soul. And then I get to be younger and younger and younger and younger for the rest of my life. Hello. So this is actually how I feel. This is how my chart, the astrological chart I have, this is what it reflects. And it reflects it accurately because when I was young, I felt so old. I felt like I already knew everything. And I actually, I remember in my 20s wanting to be an actress and thinking, I'm already over the hill. It's too late. I shouldn't have gone to college. I missed the boat. I had this horrible weight of the world, quarter life crisis where I just thought, no, I'm already too old. I missed the fucking boat. I'm 25 already. I'm turning 26. I felt so old. And now I'm 52 and I feel fantastic. And I'm just I'm going to take over the world. I've got my band and I'm going to write a movie and star in a movie. And I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And I've got a podcast and and there's no contradiction with me being a mother and having kids. And I don't look like I'm 20. I don't need, just the looks are what they are. Our bodies are going through time. And I'm good with that. And I 100% agree with you, Chelsea. It really nails on a chalkboard for me when people call themselves old in a derogatory way. And so many people do it. I almost said everybody does it. Everybody doesn't do it, but words have power. As you said in the last episode, they're like spells, which I love that pun on the word spelling. And if we care about our own elevation of consciousness, we should care about the way we speak about ourselves and others. And we should take care to frame descriptions of ourselves in ways that feel really uplifting, really empowering, and nourishing to our soul. And I'll just finish this little diatribe by saying, again, something that Mindy Pelz had said that really resonated and stuck with me. She said that menopausal women, of which I am one, are scientifically and historically, and she's done tons of research, supposed to be not just the gatekeepers of wisdom and knowledge, but the most fit that they've ever been in their life, the most poised to be able to take on the world than ever in their life. And this is a very exciting concept, and it resonates with me. So I hope that this world will begin to open up to this reality instead of stay very close-minded where we're at right now culturally.
I couldn't agree more. I think, it kind of goes along the lines of that those who know more speak less. I'm not exactly sure what the exact quote is, but it's like, if you find someone who's just talking, odds are that they're not really listening. And really to kind of gain the knowledge and the awareness, it takes the listening part. And I know that in my family and myself, that as people have gotten older, they're saying less. And the words that they do speak have more wisdom behind them, have more, like, it actually got thought out. They're not reactive as much. They're more like listening to the conversation and like tuning into whether or not what they're going to say is going to be for the betterment, is going to contribute in a positive way, is going to help in some sense, or is it the truth? And I feel like that's a big part of it. And kind of also tying back into my experience at the hospital, the other thing that I think really got to me is that we never know how many days we get to live. We don't know if you're going to live to be 95 or if you're going to live to be 45. And so waking up every day and just like living that day as if it could be your last, to me, in what life is, it's like really experiencing, and not saying that not to plan for the future or, have these goals or whatever, but just like to embrace and be present. It's like hearing people say, oh, I'm so old. I've actually watched people age. Like, maybe they didn't say these things before, and then once they turned a certain number, then they started saying these things. And then it was like literally within weeks, their face changed, like their body type changed. And I don't know, I just think that there's definitely something to it, something to what you're speaking about yourself, especially whenever we're saying it in a derogatory way.
And I look at my parents actually, and I feel really blessed to have them as role models because they're both in their 80s and they're both super youthful and they travel and they're independent and physically healthy. And my dad's so funny when he goes to his college reunion. I want to say it was like his 65th or something, because we have the same year, it lines up, and we went to the same university. And so he was like crashing my parties and my younger sister's party because hers is also the same weekend. And he was like, yeah, mine's like full of like old fogies. He was cracking me up because he has so much life in him. He's dancing and having a blast. And like you said, it really is possible to see people at all ages suddenly just being so old, using the word in that way, like, what happened to them? Like, and obviously if someone's physically ill, or that's a different story, but we're talking here just mentally almost making oneself in a state of not vibrant, not super alive. And, we use the word youthful, but that applies to the spirit in a sense, in the way we're talking about it. And I'm also not going to say that I myself have achieved this perfect ideal of never thinking that I'm old or never speaking badly about myself or never judging other people. It's a work in progress for me because, again, I grew up in the same culture everyone else did, and I was definitely influenced by it. And I think I even mentioned in the last podcast that my wish was to stop basically looking at older women who are in the public eye and judging them. So 100%, I'm calling myself out just to remind myself as well to be part of the solution, not the problem, not just to live it, but also grant that love and grace and that good eye. It's like the opposite of the evil eye that religions talk about. Grant that good eye to others, like see people for their worth, see them for their beauty, see them for their power and what they're contributing. That's what I wish and that's what I want.
I believe that there's definitely some like biblical teachings on this, like to look at everyone through the lens of love, like to see them for all their gifts and not for all of their discretions or sins or however you want to put it. See them for the beauty that they bring and then forgive them for the things that are imperfect because none of us are perfect. Maybe something else that I was thinking about, we're talking about physically, but there's not just the one body, or at least in my belief system, there's like the physical body, the mental body, the emotional body, the spiritual body, the biological age body, like all of these different things, all of these different bodies. And so they can all be different ages. Like you're saying, with the youthful spirit, it's like, okay, like maybe whenever I was born, which I completely resonate with what you said earlier about feeling like an old soul. I can remember saying things, and after I said them, I was kind of like, I don't really know where that came from, but it came out of me, And yeah, so feeling like, oh, I've done this before. I've been here. I know what this certain things feel like. And I'm sure that there are many other people that feel that old soul. But it's not old as in negative. It's like old as in like, yeah, like I've lived a few times and I've been around the block. I've experienced this. And then like, yeah, to think about like the physical body and to recognize that it's normal for things to change. Just like with women and their cycle. Animals, everyone goes through the physiological changes. And just to honor like where you are, to be feeding your body and treating your body with the respect of that, like what it's asking for at that time. And just know that it's beautiful to be able to have the experience to go through the changes. Because what is the other option? Like dying young and like then your life is over and you're on to the next one? It's like, just being, I don't know, just showing gratitude for having the opportunity to see and experience all of life. We were all babies. Everyone had to have their butt wiped at some point. And then, maybe you get to a point whenever you're old enough, then you get to have that done again. Who knows? But it's just like the beauty of the whole life experience.
I think one of the challenges for really connecting with that in this culture has to do with the way that we are very disconnected from one another, from our community, from village, from tribe, because it is really hard for most people to even imagine themselves as that baby or to have compassion, like on an airplane, for others with babies, caring for them, or to imagine oneself when they're older, needing to be taken care of like a baby. I think that comes from the fact that we are so disconnected from one another and from even our families. We have a lot of healthcare or we have a lot of systems in place that care for people instead of families. And I'm not saying that's wrong or right. It's just how we've evolved. But it's had the unfortunate side effect of this disconnect from the reality of who we are as human beings at every stage and every age. And I think allowing for more acceptance and compassion and happiness, love, joy for all those stages, inclusiveness. And then the other thing I wanted to say, a little bit unrelated to that, is there's a specific stigma attached to women and mothers about aging that is in the culture. And we as mothers, I would say, pretty much uniformly feel it big time. And first of all, when we first start having babies, probably 99% of us start to feel completely invisible, which is not a good feeling. And then you have these years where society kind of just doesn't care about you. And your primary goal is like keeping the babies alive and, sacrificing yourself so that they get what they need and making sure the family's right. And it's an act of love and it's wonderful. It's something that I would say most mothers also appreciate the gift and the blessing of being allowed to do what they wanted to do. But unfortunately, society, though, doesn't give them that kind of appreciation and credit. And so when a mother ages out of the early mothering stage, and that happens at different stages depending on the woman, but most of us at some point begin to get our head above water. Usually it's when the youngest hits around 10 years old, but it is different for every mother. You stick your head back out and you're like, and all this time you did kind of miss those things that you were involved in before you had kids, but they just took a back seat. So it's usually not that catastrophic not to have been able to continue. And many women do continue working, but there's still a very, very high level of attention paid to the kids and the family. Priority, priority, priority. And when you can finally breathe, and that can be less of a priority, our culture doesn't embrace that woman with all her wisdom and strength and beauty and fucking awesomeness and be like, yes, we're so lucky to have you back. Come help us here. Come help us there. Let us hire you. Let us give you in this training so you're going to get up on all the new technology so you can join us. Because these women have so much to offer. They can multitask. Their brains have been rewired in a way that's very beneficial to society, to business, to creativity. But they're often not given that chance. There's not an opening. There's not a pathway that's clear for most of these women, myself included. So I'm speaking from my own experience, but also from so many friends who have gone through this or are going through this, or they still have young kids, but they confide in me that they're just worried about it already. And regarding aging, the main thing I say to myself and I say to each one of these women is it's true right now. Our society really doesn't show a pathway that's clear and prescriptive. But each one of us is still alive. Like Chelsea said, we didn't die yet. So why don't we be the change we want to see in the world? Why don't we become the role models that we wished we had had in our world? I don't see enough, not even close to 2% of what I wish I could see out there as far as women who've gone through some version of what I went through and are now thriving professionally and creatively and living their best life. So I'm going to try to be that role model. I will do my best to be that role model for myself and for others. And that's the other thing that's important to me regarding aging. And like you said, there's so many bodies. I love that you brought that in. And I love that concept that we have the energetic body and the physical body and the biological body and the spiritual body. And maybe just not to pay as much attention to the appearance, physical. Yes, beauty. By the way, I love beauty and staying in shape and all the things that support health. You see me fasting, detoxing, all the things. But let's say so yes to pay attention and to love it, but also to love what is. I think that's what I'm saying. Like Byron Katie, the author, loving what is versus spending and wasting energy wishing and trying to literally transmute what we are and who we are and how we might look into a different version, a younger version, someone else's version. It's such a drain of energy that really should be used for your and our strengths, our imagination, our intuition, our ability to contribute to society and serve the world and those around us. So that was my soapbox. I'll get down off of it right now.
I love it. I love all of it. I actually had a couple things I was going to say, but then I just got enthralled in what you were saying. Well, I will say that definitely for me, you have been inspiring. It is so amazing and such a gift to be able to see someone that is living their life, actively living, still following their dreams. And a friend and I were talking last night about this, that maybe in older generations or, in the past, there was kind of like this set thing of what you did. And maybe like for our grandparents, they had these like large families and they were having lots of kids to maybe help on the farm or to help with the other kids or whatever it was. And then, maybe our parents or even us, it was like, okay, the timeline is, graduate high school, go to college, get married, have a family, live out your career, retire, do such and such. And like, I feel like that obviously is fading out. And there's like a new paradigm or a new storyline. But seeing you, because there's so many people that I know that have like stayed in the job, stayed in the relationship, stayed in whatever it was that they really weren't happy with. They had this like dream of like, oh, someday I'm going to do this. But like they were scared to take the leap, scared to try, scared of change, not wanting to put in the effort. I'm already this age. There's no way that I can do something. And kind of coming back to the society and what we deem as success or is available. And it's just like to watch you like live your dreams, and those dreams change. Just like you're saying that you were a singer and you were in a band and you were an actress whenever you were younger. And then that all got put on the back burner as you became a mother and went through that whole shift. And then for you to come back to it and say like, okay, like maybe they've changed a little bit, but I'm still going to go for what I want right now because I'm still alive and living and I can have those things. And it's really amazing. It's amazing to just see people living their truth, standing in their power, being creative, being playful, and still enjoying life, still living their life. Not just like, I'm going to be, sitting in my chair, like watching TV. Not that there's anything wrong with that if that's what you're choosing to do, but there's a big world out there full of lots of exciting, interesting, creative endeavors that you can really immerse yourself in. And coming back to like connecting, this was what I remembered. You talked about community and us living and, caring for each other. And that's kind of a big thing that I hear people say is like, oh, I don't want to be a burden. Even friends. We're not even talking about like aging, but if sometimes if someone is feeling low or they're having a tough time, they don't want to reach out. Like we're taught like, oh, be so positive. And I'll definitely say that I used to really have this outlook of, oh, I don't want to share with anyone the tough things that I'm going through because no one wants to hear that. No one wants to be a part of that. That's like a burden. That's bringing somebody's down. It's lowering the vibe. And so I think that that's another thing about whenever as people are aging and getting to a point where maybe they do require some care, that they either don't want to feel like a burden or they're embarrassed or whatever it is. This is like your opportunity. I mean, this is the way I look at it. For someone to be vulnerable enough to let you help them, to let you care for them, is like one of the biggest like acts of love. And it's not just about receiving that, but the giver benefits from it too. Like helping someone. And for whenever I went to Haiti after the earthquake in 2010 to do I call it relief work, but I don't know what you really call it, disaster relief. And I was working in the ICU there, and I was the only ICU nurse. It was one big room. There were 8 beds. I was the only nurse. And as an ICU nurse, you typically give the patients a bath once they get a bath, like every 24 hours, whether that's day shift, night shift, usually it's divided up. And as a night shift nurse, a lot of the times that's when the bath would happen because there were less things. They weren't going for as many tests. There wasn't family members, like all those types of things. And so as I was there being the night shift, one ICU nurse taking care of all 8 patients, I was like, how am I ever going to like do all this wound care, give all these meds, do all the assessments, turn everyone and give everyone a bath. And then someone told the day shifter, oh, you don't need to worry about that. There's community women that come in and they give everyone a bath. And I was like, wait, are these like family members? And she said, no, it's just like members of the community. They're all so close that this is what they do. And I thought it was so beautiful because some of them were family members and, they just all helped. And it was their way to care for their loved one. And they had so much more time. I mean, you think about it, like they're just sitting there visiting. A lot of the times people in the ICU, they can't do anything, or maybe they're, so sleepy or they can't move. And so for them to go from not even be able to have conversations with them to like actually actively caring for them, it just, I don't know, it warmed my heart. I felt so like together, like a whole family. And it was really beautiful. So
that just gave me complete chills up and down. It's incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that. First of all, I'm also in awe that you went and did that, because that's pretty incredible, selfless act of caring for others. And I know you didn't share the story for that reason, but I could not help but comment. But then that story of the community, wow, that is, feel like that's a beautiful note to end on, because Chelsea and we both have this strong desire to foster community. We foster it between ourselves, with each other, and locally as much as possible. And our wish is to foster a brighter community as well. And we, on that note, invite you to make sure to like, subscribe, check out our Facebook, our Instagram, drop us a line, anything at all. Become a part of this movement or share your movement with us. We are all in it together. And I guess on that note, should we go ahead and bring it home with the daily W's? And let me share my win and my wow. Then Chelsea will share her wish. All right. Win number 1 today was that I let my 15-year-old stay home and sleep. And I'm counting that as a win because I just felt like proud of myself for seeing her for who she is and where she's at. She just had this exhausting robotics weekend away with her robotics team. And the week before that, she had her play every single day. And she had also taken a day off after that. But just looking at her this morning, she slept 14 hours yesterday and she woke up and she was just exhausted. And I'm just so proud of myself that I was able to see that. And I think an older version of me might have just been like, no, you have to go to school. It's important. You can't miss any more classes. Like, that version of me did exist in the past, which is where the win comes in. This was like a newer, more accepting and malleable version of myself that I'm enjoying as far as like interacting with my beloved children. And wow, number 1 is that I'm really grateful that this morning I had time to fit in all the things, even with the time change. Today was like the second day of the daylight savings and usually tends to knock me off and help me feel very exhausted for a week. But I had amazing sleep, which was a gift in and of itself. That's a wow. And then having time before this recording to be able to do all the things I love, as Chelsea calls it, the morning routine of, even with the kid drop off, my younger kid, to be able to journal, to be able to do an hour of the Vipassana meditation and kind of get settled in my home, do my detox smoothie. Just very grateful, very, very grateful for that, those grounding and creative foundational efforts I was able to do.
So beautiful. I think it goes to show, kind of tying into our aging episode, that, with age comes this wisdom of being able to see your children in different ways and honoring their bodies. Before, maybe we would have just pushed through. That's kind of what my MO was whenever I was a little bit younger. And now I'm listening more to myself. So, okay, my wish is going to be, we've been working this weekend on the physical space that we have here in Missouri that I do private sessions at. And we got some big moves made yesterday, getting fence posts set with the quick concrete. And my wish is that today and tomorrow we manage to get the electrical run and dug, and the trench dug to the exact depth it's supposed to be to code. And then it gets all filled back in so that the yard is nice and smooth and things are making headway. So that is my wish.
Amazing. Love it. Love it. For Chelsea's healing house, this is where so much healing happens. Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us. Episode 17 in the books. We love you guys. We hope to hear from you, and we hope that you'll continue to join us for next week.
Until then, may your day today and all the other days be brighter and brighter.
Good night. Bye.